Yo, what's happening, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Sports Talk of Elite Wages. I am your host, Elite Wages, and we are finally nearly at the NFL season. Just a few more days until the NFL kicks off on Thursday, and my plan is to bring you a series of breakdowns for the NFC, which will be in this episode, and then I'll also do an AFC breakdown episode, as well as sharing my NFL future bets, outright bets and things like that for the upcoming NFL season. And then I'll also be doing a fantasy football episode brought to you by the guys at Fan Team as well, of course. So as always, I want to send you all over to my Twitter. Make sure you're following so you do not miss a single episode. I've just started an NFL giveaway for the season-long contest over on Fan Team. I'm going to be giving away 3 free tickets into the NFL season-long contest, brought to you again by the guys at Fan Team. All you got to do is like, retweet, and comment NFL. I'll be drawing the winners next Tuesday, so 2 days before the NFL starts. So make sure you're entered into that. And then, obviously, of course, make sure you head over to my YouTube. Subscribe there, turn notifications on so you don't miss a single episode. You can catch my Premier League episodes, which I have on there at the moment, and then obviously you can listen back to my NFL episodes, which will be on there shortly. And then while you're here as well, make sure you go over to my guy Daily College Bets, the absolute college goat. He's been putting out a series of episodes for doing a similar thing, breaking down each conference for college football. So if you're new to college football, he's the guy you want to be listening to. If you're not new to college football and you want to simply win money, he's still the guy you want to be going to. So make sure you go over there, drop him a sub, tell him your boy Elite Wages sent you. And also, me and Daily College Bets will be doing a few collabs as well for the NFL season with a few breakdowns which we posted on Twitter, and of course on both of our podcasts as well. So make sure you follow us both on Twitter and subscribe to us both on YouTube. Turn notifications on so you don't miss a single episode from either of us. So let's get into the NFC conference breakdown. 5-12 record last year, negative home, road and divisional record, only winning one game against the division opponents. Struggled all around really for the Bears. Struggled on offense and defense, ranking in the bottom 10 for both. Their defense actually allowed around 217 passing yards per game, which ranked 16th in the league. In terms of their offense, we can see them near the bottom of the category here in 28th, averaging only 18 points per game. So offensively not very good, defensively sort of mediocre. In terms of the roster moves and things for the team, they aggressively revamped their interior line. They added Joe Thuney there, Drew Dalman, Jonah Jackson. So 3 new guys there in the middle to solidify that protection for Caleb Williams. And then on the defensive side of the ball, obviously added Montez Sweat last year, added Grady Jarrett, also added tight end Colton Loveland as well, from Michigan, and Adi Ingbo as well on the edge. So they've added a lot of pieces on both sides of the ball, obviously hoping to propel them into contention for the NFC North. And according to CBS Sports, this off season with the drafts and the draft picks and the off season acquisitions, it graded them an A off season grade. So which is one of the best in the NFL, obviously. So in terms of their upside for this year, I said it last year, this is the year that they would have penciled in to sort of better themselves, if you like. And obviously now they have a new head coach in Ben Johnson. Significant reinforcements in the trenches as well. A few more potential playmakers. I didn't even mention DJ Moore, Rome Odunze. for a little bit of depth. I didn't even mention those kind of players. Cole Kmet as well, being a good pass catcher. DeAndre Swift. So they've got a very good, talented offense, as well as a new sort of offensive line, a decent pass rush with a decent secondary. I expect them to sort of propel themselves into a little bit more contention within this division. Obviously, the other three teams sort of ran away with it a little bit last year. I think they can up their wins and sort of get themselves into the number 2 or 3 spot this year if sort of Caleb Williams develops based on his enhanced support. And obviously, again, Chicago could surprise and compete in this division. We're going to move on to the Detroit Lions, who actually won the division last year. Obviously, they dominated the division. 15-2 record, 7-2 at home, 8-0 on the road, 6-0 in the division. They had some notable injuries last year on both sides of the ball. The biggest one being Aiden Hutchinson for their pass rush, as well as Davenport, who tore his pec as well. So they had 2 key parts for their pass rush out. But despite that, they still managed to remain top contenders in the league. Obviously disappointing to be kicked out of the playoffs so early. They added a few players in the draft. Where are we now? There we go, offense. So they added a few players in the draft to help solidify their offensive line. Tate Ratledge was added on the interior line, obviously, as well. In the pass rush, Williams there from Ohio State was also added, as well as a few little pieces here and there for a little bit of depth in wide receiver room and in the running back room and things like that. But they didn't really do too much in terms of big name acquisitions, but they did manage to keep a lot of their star players. New deals for DJ Reed, Aiden Hutchinson obviously back from injury, Davenport back from injury. They're obviously huge and they're like brand new signings themselves. And then obviously again, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams, Jahmyr Gibbs, Jared Goff, David Montgomery. A lot of very good skill players within this team. Sewell as well being the star man in the pass protection. It meant they sort of didn't need to splash out as much as other teams. They already have a solid core. Getting a lot of those players back healthy was sort of the main target for the off season. They're obviously targeting a 3-peat in the NFC North, and they are the favourites to do so, especially when you look at their stats from last year. Points scored the most in the league by 3 points at 33. Defensively as well, playing very, very well. Total defense, scoring defense, allowing. I think they are very, very good at allowing. They were a part of a lot of high scoring games last year, but obviously didn't matter too much. They were able to overcome those. Detroit Lions 11th there, averaging 21 points allowed per game. So very good defensively, even despite those main injury concerns that they had last year. There is a huge question on their defensive depth. If they do get some similar injuries as they did last year, for here instance, safety, there's not many players that can step in for the likes of Branch or Kirby Joseph. So the depth is a little bit off. And obviously, again, I know a lot of these guys had some time missing last year. You can see 2 guys there questionable already. If that kind of goes upside down a little bit, the pass protection for Jared Goff isn't going to be there. So they basically need their O-line to stay healthy and step up, as well as their defensive rookies and again depth players coming in and solidifying things if things do go south. But I do believe the Lions will be among the elite this year. I can see a similar sort of maybe not 15 wins. They do have the 4th hardest schedule in the league next year. And they do play a lot of good, solid defensive teams as well. So it could be a little bit more of a struggle for the Lions next year. But I do expect them to be able to top this division again for the 3rd straight year. And we're going to move on to my team now, Green Bay Packers. 11-6 record last year, made the playoffs. 6-3 at home, 5-3 away, but just 1-5 against divisional opponents. Last year, Packers defense was very, very strong. They were actually 5th in total defense by yards. But we did struggle to keep a lot of teams out of the end zone, despite us being 5th in points per game average to opponents being 20 allowed, which is very, very low. We sort of kept it closer than it needed to be. Offensively showed flashes, if you like. Top 8 for point score, but 26, so the differential being 6 points. We played out a lot of close games, which obviously isn't the best. We'd have liked to have a bit more separation between each team. But yeah, we need sort of more experience in the team. Those players that have been around a few years need to sort of step up next year. Christian Watson being one of those guys who's been injured for a reasonable period for the Packers. Players like him and Jaden Reed, who was our star man last year, Romeo Dobbs needs to step up, and obviously again Josh Jacobs being our key running back. Those kind of players need to continue it into this year. And obviously Jordan Love, he needs to keep himself healthy. He needs to keep himself locked in. Especially now we've got a new wide receiver for him in Matthew Golden, who was selected in the first round. The first time we've selected a wide receiver in the first round since I think about 10 years. But we made some fairly decent additions in the free agency as well. Adding Aaron Banks there for the left guard, which is pass protection. Elgin Jenkins obviously had the extension, as did Zach Tom. So our pass rush defense is, our offensive line, our pass protection is looking fairly nice. Obviously got some decent pass catching ability players along with Josh Jacobs, and then on defense as well. Nate Hobbs comes in for, well, obviously we lost Jair Alexander at cornerback. Valentine stepping up into that position. Xavier McKinney, who was absolutely amazing last year. I think he had was it a record 4 straight games with an interception. Nixon as well, Evan Williams. So we've got some good pieces on defense as well. Erangan Cooper last year, who was a decent player. Quay Walker, and then you got the pass rush of Gary, Clark, and Wyatt, who were fairly decent last year as well. As I said, drafting Matthew Golden in the first round, and then adding a few players on the offensive line and things like that. Anthony Belton coming in, and then a few more depth players and things like that. But I think we can sort of propel ourselves into the top. I keep using that word, propel ourselves to the top. We've sort of flown under the radar a little bit, and I think we're kind of a quiet pick to win the division. We've got some serious stability in the team. Obviously we've not changed too much. We've not made big splashes in the free agency market or anything like that. But we've been sort of a consistent winning team. Last year getting 11 wins, it wasn't sort of in our plan. No one sort of expected that, myself included, and we sort of exceeded what everyone thought we could do last year. And obviously Matt LaFleur being a decent head coach for us, Jordan Love being a very good quarterback for us as well, despite losing Aaron Rodgers, who a lot of people thought that would be our downfall. He's proven that he's a fairly good quarterback within this division and league. Roster balance as well gives us a legitimate shot for postseason again this year. There's obviously a little bit of concern with the wide receiver room. No big names, but again, a lot of these players can sort of step up and get some decent yardage for Jordan Love on the Packers and get some touchdowns in there. You can see there, Jaden Reed 857 yards. Tucker Kraft, Christian Watson, Romeo Dobbs. So we've got some nice numbers there, spreading the ball around a lot. And again, cornerback depth. Obviously now with Jair Alexander gone as well, there's no star name at the back, just Xavier McKinney. But I think we can contend for the division this year. And I think Detroit Lions and the Green Bay Packers could be 1 and 2 within this division. And then the final team in this division. Minnesota Vikings 14-3, 8-1 at home, 6-2 on the road, and then 4-2 within the division. Obviously, they impressed a lot last year. No one sort of expected them to be the team that they turned out to be. Obviously, especially losing JJ McCarthy early on, kind of made them switch to Sam Darnold. But looking at their offense, Minnesota ranked 9th with 24 points per game. Defensively playing very, very good, led by Hunter as well. I think they were top 10 for opponent points per game as well. Let's have a look here. There you go, Minnesota 4th, averaging 19 points allowed per opponent game. So they sort of they definitely overachieved in their season last year. Made some good off-season acquisitions as well. Obviously now JJ McCarthy comes in. Carson Wentz has been brought in for backup as well. They brought in Jordan Mason, who had a really good year covering for Christian McCaffrey last year. Jordan Addison suspended, and Jalen Naylor as well, who's going to be out for I think a week or two. I don't think it's going to be too long. But some good names there. Jefferson will be fit. TJ Hawkinson as well, and then they added Will Fries in there at guard, Ryan Kelly at centre as well as a lot of depth in the defense. Obviously Jonathan Allen there, obviously Jonathan Greenwood from last year as well, added for their pass rush. Van Ginkel had a really good year last year. Harrison Smith has obviously always been a top safety in the league, but they do have a lot of cap space left, so they could still make an addition or two. Jeff Okudah is there coming from the Lions and from the Falcons for a little bit of depth too, so they've got a lot of depth position players in the team. Could be a very, very good season for the Vikings, obviously under JJ McCarthy. Obviously the main story being JJ McCarthy will now take the reins, which was probably the plan for last year but didn't sort of work out, obviously due to his injury. So they basically do have a rookie quarterback this year, which it could be a little bit of a off-putting thing if you want to back the Vikings. For me, it's putting me off a little bit. I don't think they're going to replicate anywhere near the 14 wins they got last year. JJ McCarthy is a very, very good quarterback. I'm a big fan, obviously being a Michigan fan as well, so I've seen him play quite a bit. Offensive line has been improved for him, which is a good thing, and obviously he's got one of the best wide receivers in the league in Justin Jefferson, but we need these kind of guys to step up a little bit as well. There's no one sort of big enough after Justin Jefferson. Obviously you've got Aaron Jones, who's a very good pass catching back. Jordan Mason, very good in the running game as well. TJ Hawkinson, who's good at pass catching, but he'll need that receiving help and sort of his defense to stand up again as it did last year. And if he gets those two things, they can have a very, very good year. But in terms of my prediction for the full division, I think there's no way you can look past the Detroit Lions. I think they've done everything they needed to do. They got all the players back they needed back, re-signings and things like that. Only downfall for me is the fact they lost Ben Johnson, so there might maybe a little bit, and obviously Dennis Allen as well, he's gone, so there could be a little bit of teething problems in their coordination, in the offensive coordinator and the defensive coordinator rooms, in their play calling and things like that. But I think they've got the depth and the team to be able to overcome that anyway. So I think they can win this division again, and I think the Green Bay Packers can finish second this year. Last year the Minnesota Vikings obviously over-excelled. The Packers sort of played to their potential. We've flown under the radar a little bit. Made some re-signings, made some new signings, which haven't been big names, but they've been some strong acquisitions. We've got sort of a steady team, decent head coach, decent quarterback, decent running back room. So I think we can contend again. Decent schedule. If we can sort of turn around this 1-5 division record, that could sort of boost us up by another couple of wins as well, obviously. And then I think it's going to be the Chicago Bears in third place. Obviously, I think they've highlighted last year. I think this is the season that they were aiming for. Caleb Williams is a good quarterback.
He's got some good receivers. He's got good running back, good protection, good defense. So I think they can win a fair few games. And then obviously in the fourth place, I think it's going to be Minnesota Vikings. I think they're putting a lot of pressure on JJ McCarthy. Obviously last year was his year, and then he got injured. So I think there's an added pressure now for him to perform after his injury. Outside of Justin Jefferson, I don't think there's too much that can help him really. So I think they're going to have a little bit of a downfall year this year. So I'm going for Lions first, Packers second, Bears third, and Minnesota Vikings fourth. I'm actually going to start off with the Dallas Cowboys. Disappointing year last year, third in the NFC East, 7-10 record, 2-7 at home, which is poor from their standards. 3-3 against the division. Just all around sort of disappointing year for them last year, really. Offensively ranked fourth in scoring, led by obviously quarterback Dak Prescott. But defensively struggled a lot. You can see them way down. Where are they? Way down 31st, averaging 27 points allowed per game. Obviously, that's not what they're used to. They allowed 130 rushing yards per game first, so they got hammered on the ground. They got hammered, every game they played. But again, like I said, Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, they had Tony Pollard last year as well, so their offense was okay. Averaging 20 points per game. Obviously, with the defense not being able to get stops, left them on the field quite a lot, which obviously made them struggle. That's as simple as that, really. So with that poor defensive performance last year, decisions on the defensive side of the ball. As you can see by their draft picks on the side here, they added a few new faces on defense, which helped them in terms of their depth. I'm not even going to pronounce his name. Edge rusher there, another cornerback, which is highly needed after Diggs said this. He's not sure if he's going to be ready for the opener. A few more defensive tackle additions in the draft as well. In terms of their sort of offense, very similar story. CeeDee Lamb added George Pickens, which is a very, very good addition considering Brandon Cooks obviously left a few years ago, so they've got no sort of wide receiver two, if you like. Michael Gallup obviously going as well last year. Running back room not looking the best. Obviously Javonte Williams coming in, decent running back. Miles Sanders coming in for a little bit of depth as well, but it's not looking the best unit in the league. A few faces on the offensive line, but again, no one sort of noticeable to help them, boost into the top of this division. Deron Bland looking for a new deal, and as is Micah Parsons, who's on a holdout, unsure if he's going to be ready for week one. They need to get that deal done if they want to have any sort of chance of winning anything this year. Without him, I think they're pretty much done. So the season basically now relies on if Dak Prescott can stay healthy. If the O-line can protect him to keep him healthy, that'll be an added boost. If that happens, their offense could play better than last year. Obviously, with George Pickens coming in now with CeeDee Lamb, but obviously the downfall of their defense last year. Obviously, they had a few injuries and things like that, which didn't help. But the way they were undone last year on numerous occasions is a very, very big concern for me. So I think it's going to be a challenge for them to get into the division fight. So I'm not too high on the Cowboys this year. Moving on to one of the worst teams in the league last year, the New York Giants. 3 wins, 14 losses, just 1 win at home, 2 wins on the road, none against the division. Obviously, a very, very poor season last year. Simple as that. Offensively, very poor. Second worst in the league, averaging just 16 points per game. Defensively, very similar story. Again, being in the, I think, for points allowed per game. Where are they there? Oh, actually, no, a little bit better. 20th there, averaging 24th. So in the bottom 12, in the bottom half of the league. But, with their offense being very poor, led to them having a very poor defensive year as well. Even though they do have a lot of good names on defense, with their struggles on offense, it led to a few changes in the team. Drafting this guy here, Jackson Dart, for quarterback. Obviously added in Russ Wilson as well with James Winston for the depth. Obviously, those two being vets. Why is that there? And those two being vets, obviously Jackson Dart coming in to sort of sit behind Russ Wilson and James Winston for maybe a year to help him get used to the league, help him settle in, and just to learn from two really good quarterbacks in the league, really. A new quarterback to learn from two really, really good quarterbacks. Added Abdul Carter, as you can see there in the draft, to go with, on paper this is a really solid defensive unit for the Giants. It's just the offense that sort of lets them down. You added Abdul Carter to Brian Burns, Thibodeau, Dexter Lawrence, who already had a really good year. All had really good years last year, so you add in now another decent pass rush into that. Little bit slim on the cornerback area, and again, outside of Tyrone Tracy and Malik Neighbors, there's no one on offense that can really stand out, in my opinion. I don't think there's too much else to say. I think their sights are going to be set this year on trying to beat 3 wins that they had last year, basically. So with that, we're going to move on to the Philadelphia Eagles. Last year's Super Bowl champions, 14-3 record, 8-1 at home, 6-2 on the road, 5-1 in the division. Offensively, very, very, very good. Defensively, very, very good. The best on defense, 18 points allowed per game. Scoring offense, they were 5th, I think. Let's have a look. 5th, I think, in points per game from last year. There you go, yeah, with 29 points. As an offensive unit, total offense, they were 2nd in the league. Obviously led by the running back performance from Saquon Barkley. Defensively ranked in the top 10 overall. Obviously, like I said, 1st for points allowed. Added a lot of depth in the draft. Obviously had a lot of picks this year in the draft. I think key this year is going to be trying to keep Saquon Barkley rolling, but I don't think it's going to happen too much. I think Jalen Hurts is going to have a good year. Throw into AJ Brown, Devonta Smith, who had sort of down years, even though they both did combine for 1,900 yards, 15 touchdowns. Dallas Goedert nearly had another 500 as well. Obviously, Jordan Mailata still there, Cam Jurgens, Lane Johnson, decent pass protection, good pass rush. Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith Jr., Zach Bourne, Nakobe Dean, Quinion Mitchell, Blankenship, and Cooper DeJean had a really, really good year last year. They're all going to, excel again this year. And then, yeah, I'm trying to keep this one short and sweet. I don't think there's too much else to say about the Philadelphia Eagles. They're again the odds-on favourite to win the division, and to be honest, I think it's going to take a very special team to be able to take them down. And then obviously talking about special teams, Washington Commanders last year had a really, really good year and a rookie year for Jaden Daniels. 12 wins, 5 losses, 7-2 at home, 5-3 on the road, 4-2 in the division. Offensively, played very, very good. 28 points averaged for the offense. Defensively, a little bit behind. I think they were 20th, averaging about 24 points per game. But Jaden Daniels broke all sorts of records last year. Rushing records, passing accuracy records, pass completion records. He just had a really, really good year. Didn't have too many draft picks there, but they did give a lot of draft capital away. But they have added a lot of good, solid names to help Jaden Daniels. Tunsil brought in for pass protection. Obviously a big name there, Deebo Samuel on offense as well. Terry McLaurin just got a whole new deal. So offensively looking very, very sharp. Similar to last year, added obviously a few bits for the extra protection and targets. Defensively, Javon Kinlaw comes in. Frankie Louvu last year had a bit of a down year, but he can pick himself up a little bit. Von Miller and Bobby Wagner in the middle for that veteran leadership, along with Marshawn Lattimore came in last year. I think they've got a solid team all over the field. I think if they can sort of keep Jaden Daniels rolling, I think they'll be another good contender for the Philadelphia Eagles. Obviously, we saw it a few years ago with CJ Stroud, where he had a very good rookie year, and then he sort of had a sophomore slump. So I'm hoping that doesn't happen this year for Jaden Daniels, and I'm hoping that they can continue their little dominance. So my NFC prediction for the East is going to be the same as last year: the Eagles first, Commanders second, Dallas Cowboys third, and then the New York Giants fourth. 8-9 last year, 4-5 at home, 4-4 on the road, 4-2 in the division. So very good in the division. Couldn't quite get it done at home. In terms of the team from last year, they had a huge issue in the quarterback room. Obviously had Kirk Cousins signed on a huge deal at the beginning of last year. Paid him a lot of money. Obviously thrown for 3,500 yards, which is fairly respectable. Only 18 touchdowns, 16 interceptions, which obviously isn't very good. Didn't get the results they needed to win the division or get to playoffs. So that led to a quarterback change and Michael Penix Jr. coming in at quarterback for the remaining, for 5 games in total, 775 yards. Didn't obviously do too well either, but did build a good bond with Drake London. As you can see, had 1,271 yards total last year. Bijan Robinson had almost 2,000 scrimmage yards as well. 14 touchdowns on the ground. Did he kick? Yeah, with another one through the air. So very, very good skill players for the team. And then obviously, as you can see, they allowed a lot more. Well, they allowed more points than they did score, which obviously needs to change. So I think this offense next year can be a lot better than it was last year. And I think the defense can also step up as well. In terms of the roster for next year, obviously, like I said, they moved from Kirk Cousins to Michael Penix Jr. Bijan Robinson, possibly running back 1 in fantasy next year. Tyler Algier as well, backing him up. Drake London could also potentially have the most targets in the league next year. Darnell Mooney, Ray McLeod being 2 fairly underrated receivers, which Michael Penix Jr. can find quite often. Kyle Pitts Sr. didn't really hit the heights that he was quite expected to, but I think he can potentially get there this year. Fairly decent O-line as well, which can help protect Michael Penix Jr. In terms of the defense, Onyemata brought in Leonard Floyd. Where is he? The other guy they just drafted, Jalen Walker, there from Georgia with their first round pick. So adding people and key players to some nice positions where they need to make an impact. AJ Terrell and Jesse Bates III didn't really have too much of a good year last year. Mike Hughes as well. But they can sort of turn that around, I think, next year. And with them turning that around, it'll give them a good boost in terms of their divisional position, and I think they can be the closest team in this division to contend with the Tampa Bay Bucs. Next team is going to be the Carolina Panthers, one of the worst teams in the league, 5-12, 3-6 at home, 2-6 on the road, 2-4 in the division. Had their own struggle at quarterback. Obviously started off with Bryce Young, didn't really do too well to start the season. Brought in I can't remember his name. Oh my god, what's his name? Andy Dalton. They brought in Andy Dalton. He also didn't do too well, which obviously led to bringing back in Bryce Young, and he actually played a lot better to finish the season than he did to start. Obviously his yardage and his completion percentage and things like that, not off the charts. 15 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. But if you look at his wide receiver room, he didn't really get much help. There's a lot of players here that dropped a lot of passes or couldn't connect. Not enough yardage, in my opinion. The running game did better than it has previously, and they've now added Rico Dowdle as well to Chuba Hubbard to help solidify a 1-2 punch in the backfield. Brought in McMillan in the draft as well to go with Thielen and Leggett. So looking at these skill players here, they actually have a few fairly decent names. On defense as well, added a few depth players, but again, no one notable really. I don't think their defense is going to be good enough to sort of give them a boost on offense, if that makes sense. But offensively could potentially be better. Bryce Young, it's kind of like a make or break season for him, in my opinion. But looking at the stats here, they were the worst team on defense and one of the worst on offense. The differential, 20 touchdowns for 20 touchdowns favouring the opponents compared to themselves is huge. So I think it's going to be a similar story for the Carolina Panthers if Bryce Young can play a lot better or start the way he finished last year. They could potentially beat 5 wins, but I think it's a very, very difficult thing for them to do. And then we're going to move on to the New Orleans Saints, who also had exactly the same record: 5-12, 3-6 at home, 2-6 on the road, and 2-4 within the division. 3 points less on offense than the Carolina Panthers, which is why they are last. A little bit of a surprise for me to see them that low, obviously having Derek Carr last year. But again, a huge factor was his injury, which has now led to him to actually retiring. Alvin Kamara having almost 1,500 total scrimmage yards, being a star rusher that he is. But again, another case of the receivers not really helping him out. Chris Olave out through injury. Marcus Valdes-Scantling didn't play too many games. Neither did Rashid Shaheed. So there's a lot of players that missed time last year, which obviously didn't help their team as a whole, which obviously led to them having a poor offense, 19.9 yards on average, points on average, conceding a lot more touchdowns than they did score. And I think it's going to be a similar thing this year. No real quarterback. Only Spencer Rattler and Tyler Slough. Spencer Rattler will be quarterback 1, but he's not a good enough quarterback for this league, in my opinion. Not quite yet. Alvin Kamara is obviously still that star. Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, Brendan Cooks, 3 really good receivers, along with Alvin Kamara, who's good at the backfield. John Johnson isn't too bad either. So the skill players, they are fairly decent for a good quarterback, which is something they do not have. On defense, Cameron Jordan, Demario Davis, both aging players, so they haven't got too much left in the tank, you wouldn't have thought. Chase Young hasn't played as well as he was expected to play after being a top, I think he was a number 2 pick, was he, a couple of years ago. Justin Reed being another one who's just about kept a place in the league. But, it's just a very difficult situation for the Saints having no quarterback. It's hard to see them getting over 5 wins with no quarterback, even though they do have a very good roster. A reasonably competitive roster. They just need a quarterback. And then we're going to finish off this division with the current champions, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I'm actually quite high on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this year. 10-7 record, 5-4 at home, 5-3 on the road, 4-2 within the division. I'm a big fan of Baker Mayfield. I have been since his days at the Browns. I think he's a good quarterback. I think he's now finally just settled in, and he's found his team that can help him as much as possible. I'll go into another reason for that in a minute as well. But he's just had his back-to-back 4,000 yard passing season. He had 4,044 in 2023, 4,500 last year. Obviously, Mike Evans having 11 straight 1,000 yard seasons is a big part of that as well. And also being complemented by a decent running back and rushing attack, having 1,700 yards between the 1-2 punch in their running back area. Rashid White almost getting 1,000 scrimmage yards as well. There was a lot of concern when Chris Godwin went down. Was Baker Mayfield going to struggle to find Mike Evans every play, or would he spread it around? He did in fact spread it around, and you can see here the 7 players that had 30 or more receptions, and then the same 7 players had 300 or more receiving yards. So he was able to find a lot of his targets that he wanted, frequently and often, and he was very consistent and he was very efficient. And then obviously, as you can see, he was one of the best offensive units as a team. 502 total points, 59 touchdowns, 29.5 points per game on average. Their defense obviously playing a very solid part as well. 41 touchdowns allowed and averaging 22.6 points per game to opponents. And again, that's largely down to the efficiency of Baker Mayfield, but they've brought in Teddy Bridgewater as a backup just in case. Bucky Irvin and Rashid White will remain as the 1-2 in the running back room. Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, who will start the season out for the first couple of weeks, but they have drafted Egbuka, who has 2 1,000-yard seasons in college in the past couple of years. Also, Tez Johnson was drafted in the 7th round from Oregon, who has had 3 straight 800-plus yards. So there's a lot of potential within these receivers to get a lot of yardage for Baker Mayfield and help him out on offense. The Buccaneers have sort of done everything they can to help him. They've improved the offensive line. Obviously, Tristan Wirth being the main absentee, which when he comes back, they will be a top offensive line. So they've done everything on offense to give him all the tools and to give him the best protection possible to help him succeed. And then on defense, they've given him a decent defense too. Vita Vea, one of the best nose tackles in the league. Yaya Diaby, Levante David, Jamal Dean, Winfield Jr., and then Hassan Reddick, who had a bit of a misplaced season last year, you can call it, where he was, he didn't really know where he wanted to sign. But he has now found himself at the Buccaneers, and he's going to bring a lot of attention due to his pass rush ability as well. But in terms of the division as a whole, I think it finishes the exact same way as it did last year. I think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are the clear favourites, and I think they're the clear winners. I don't think there's any contention in this division this year. I think Tampa Bay and the Baker Mayfield will be the best in the division, maybe even one of the top teams in the NFC as well. Second will be the Atlanta Falcons. I think Carolina Panthers will be third, and then I think it's hard to see the Saints doing better than any other team in the NFL. If I'm honest, I think they're going to finish with the worst record in the league. So the Saints will finish in 4th. Final division in this conference, the NFC West, and we'll go from bottom to top this time. So we'll go San Francisco first, who are the worst team in the division. Had a really disappointing season: 6 wins, 11 losses, 4-5 at home, 2-6 on the road, and just 1 win in 6 games in the division. Largely down to a lot of injuries within their team. Struggled because of that, really. Deebo Samuel missed a few games, and obviously now he's moved on anyway. Brandon Ayuk went down with an ACL, so he didn't play half the season. I think Brock Purdy missed a few games as well. And then obviously the big one, Christian McCaffrey, missing time, only playing 4 games, and he didn't actually play those full 4 games either. He went off quite early in a few of those. So there was a lot of injury issues, and that led to rushing yards being way down. Jordan Mason doing a very good job in Christian McCaffrey's absence, but even he missed a few games due to injury as well. And obviously now he's also moved on to the Vikings. But George Kittle was the leading receiver, and Juwan Jennings, which is a big surprise when you got names like Deebo Samuel and Brendan Ayuk on the team. But it was just one of those kind of seasons for them. They struggled offensively, scoring a lot less than their opponents, and obviously the defense didn't do too well either. But again, this season virtually relies on Christian McCaffrey being healthy. They added Brian Robinson Jr. to help Christian McCaffrey in the running back room. Brought in Mac Jones as Brock Purdy's backup as well. But the wide receivers, it's looking very, very slim. They've just acquired Sky Moore from the Chiefs, but only really Juwan Jennings, who is not expected to start week 1 either. Actually, Brendan Ayuk obviously going to start the season on the IR. No Deebo Samuel now. Trent Williams didn't really do too well last year, but it was kind of a lost season. And a lot of names here questionable for their defense too. Nick Bosa being the big one, but he should go. Fred Warner being a huge impact in their linebacker area, middle of the field, and obviously the secondary didn't do too well either last year. But I think it's going to be another one of those seasons. I think it very much depends on Christian McCaffrey being healthy. I think Brock Purdy's actually going to struggle. I don't think he's that good anyway. I think he's going to struggle a lot to find his receivers. I think he's going to rely on Christian McCaffrey a lot. I think that's a lot of weight for McCaffrey's shoulders, I think, this year. Let's go to the Arizona Cardinals. I'm actually high on this team. You'll hear a lot more about the Arizona Cardinals from myself and Daily College Bets in the next couple of days. But 8 wins, 9 losses, 6-3 at home, 2-6 on the road, 3-3 in the division. One thing I want to say about that: if they can improve this road record, they can win this division. It's going to be my hot take to start this NFC West off. But obviously got a lot of good names on both sides of the ball for this team. Starting off with Kyler Murray, one of the best, in my opinion, one of the best dual threat quarterbacks in the league. 1,851 total passing yards, 21 passing touchdowns, 11 interceptions, and then also get another 500 yards with 5 touchdowns on the ground as well. So one of the best dual threat quarterbacks in the league. James Conner, one of the best, in my opinion, one of the best running backs in the league as well, complementing them with another 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns. And then Trey McBride, a really, really good tight end who actually led the team in yardage, and that was really surprising to me, seeing Marvin Harrison Jr. not leading that stat line. But he did have 8 touchdowns, 885 yards. I think he's going to improve on that again this year. I think he's going to go a lot higher than last year. Zay Jones also didn't do too much last year, but I think he's going to play a bit of a part again this year too. And then obviously, as you can see there, Budda Baker leading the team in tackles. But this team did actually have a fairly decent offense. 41 total touchdowns, 400 points, averaging 23.5 points per game. Defensively, slightly better, 22.3 points per game for opponents. Allowed only 39 touchdowns to their opponents as well. So defensively, pretty solid. Offensively, solid as well. And then, Jacoby Brissett's been brought in to back up Kyler Murray. James Conner remains wide receiver, running back 1. Marvin Harrison Jr., Michael Wilson, Zay Jones, being the trio of wide receivers that Kyler Murray will look to find, with obviously Trey McBride. Decent sort of offensive line, not the best, but doing well for Kyler Murray so far at his time in the Cardinals. On defense, they've added a few new names. Obviously, you've got Budda Baker, one of the best free safeties in the league. Will Johnson has been brought in from the draft from Michigan. Really good cornerback. Mac Wilson Sr. Has been brought back as well. Darius Robinson, Dalvin Tomlinson, Calais Campbell has been added, and Josh Sweat from the Eagles. Now, Josh Sweat is one of the best pass rushers from the Eagles' dominance last year. Obviously got 2 sacks in the Super Bowl win last year as well. So bringing him in with Calais Campbell to sort of boost that pass rush, which really struggled last year. So they've added a lot of good weapons for Kyler Murray, and on defense as well. They've added quite a bit as well. So I think this team is, it has improved on last year. They got 8 wins last year, and I think they can improve on that again this year. But you will hear about the Arizona Cardinals more from myself and Daly in a couple of episodes' time. Moving on to the Seattle Seahawks. Now, the Seahawks actually have a decent team as well. 10-7 last year, 3-6 at home, 7-1 at home, 4-2 in the division. 7-1 on the road is really, really good. You would expect that road record to translate at home, and it didn't. If they sort of evened that out, they would have easily won this division. Made it to the playoffs, but it wasn't to be. They've obviously had a lot of new faces and a bit of a juggle around on offense, but in terms of last year, the stats are virtually irrelevant. You've now got Geno Smith, who had over 4,320 yards to be exact, no longer on the team. Jackson Smith and Jigba led the team in receiving yards with 1,130, and then the running back room didn't really do too well either, with only having, well, you have the double punch of Kenneth Walker and Charbonnet having over 500 each. 15 combined touchdowns for those two as well. But no DK Metcalf anymore, no Tyler Lockett. I think that's going to impact the team a lot as well. No Geno Smith. They did have a decent offense from last year, 22 points on average, 41 total touchdowns, defensively playing very well too. This year's a new look offense for the Seattle Seahawks, and I think it's going to, I don't know if they're going to play well or if they're going to struggle to replicate what they did last year. Obviously, there's a few new names. Sam Darnold obviously had a good year for the Vikings last year, but it wasn't smooth sailing. No one sort of expected that to happen. It just kind of happened. So whether or not he's earned his contract here remains to be seen. Jackson Smith and Jigba is now wide receiver 1 with the departing Lockett and DK Metcalf, but they have added Cooper Kupp as well. So Sam Darnold does have weapons. Jackson Smith and Jigba, Cooper Kupp, Kenneth Walker. He's got some decent names there to throw to. But again, it remains to be seen if last year was a bit of a fluky season. On defense, added Leonard Williams, Ernest Jones, both former Rams. Byron Murphy coming in with DeMarcus Lawrence, who's come from the Cowboys. Julian Love as well. So a lot of good names on defense too, and a lot of players added for depth to create this kind of big, nice roster. Also adding a lot of players in the draft as well, as you can see there. Had a lot of draft picks last year, so they've got a lot of depth within this team. Whether or not these new additions can propel them to the top of the NFC West, that remains to be seen. But we'll move on to last year's winners, which were the LA Rams, 10-7 record, 5-4 at home, 5-3 on the road, 4-2 in the division. Now I'm actually going to have to Google this, but I'm pretty sure the Rams' record last year started off very, very poorly. Let's have a look. I'm pretty sure they lost a lot of games at the start of the season, and then they came back. Yes, they did. So they actually had one win in the first 5 games. In the first 5 games, one win. And they had obviously injuries to Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, which didn't help them. But after that, they won 7 out of the last 10, which obviously boosted them to a winning or a division winning team and into the playoffs as well. But in terms of their team from last year, again, they're another team that has had a little bit of a jiggle around. Matt Stafford remains, and an elite quarterback like Matt Stafford with some decent receivers, he can do things. Puka Nacua, 990 yards. Obviously, Cooper Kupp didn't sort of play too many games, played 12 games, 710 yards, 6 touchdowns. But Kyren Williams sort of tied them over in those wide receivers' absence. 1,299 total yards. The nearest running back was 207, which was Blake Corum. 14 touchdowns as well for Kyren Williams. But again, another team that was really poor, pulled it together, and they actually turned around to win the division. You can see there the opponents scored a lot more than the Rams, but that didn't necessarily matter for them. Down the stretch, they played a lot better than they started. Next year, quarterback 1 remains Matt Stafford, Kyren Williams, running back 1 as well, Puka Nacua, and they've now added Devontae Adams. In my opinion, Devontae Adams is one of the best wide receivers in the league in the last decade. He will 100% be better than Cooper Kupp. Mark my words on that one. Tyler Higbee as well, another good pass catcher. A fairly decent offensive line. Obviously, been around Matt Stafford for a long time. And then you got, obviously, they had the loss of Aaron Donald last year, but they brought in Fisk and Verse in the draft, and they both played very, very well in his absence. Byron Young, Darius Williams, and Witherspoon played, another part from last year where It solidified the end of the season to get that divisional win. Brought in a lot of players in the draft again. Highlighting the need for depth. Bringing in a tight end actually for the first pick of their draft. So I think the NFC West is going to be. I think it's going to be wide open. I don't think the 49ers are going to be able to contend. But in terms of the other three teams, I think it's going to be a very close record for these three teams. But in my opinion, I think the Arizona Cardinals are going to win this NFC West. I think the Seahawks could come second. I think the Rams will closely come third. It could be another battle between the Rams and the Seahawks where they have the same record. But I do think the Cardinals will win the NFC West. Okay, so with that brings the end of this episode. So that was my NFC preview. My breakdown from each division, each team, each division within this conference. I will have my future bets episode, which will go through a lot of those teams again in more depth in a couple of days' time. The next episode I'll be doing is the AFC conference, which again be the similar format, team by team, division by division. But do not forget to head over to my Twitter when this loads. Drop me a follow. Make sure you like and retweet. And while you're here, make sure you check my pinned tweet, and you can enter my giveaway for you can win one of 3 tickets to the NFL. All you got to do is like, retweet, and comment NFL to be entered. Winners will be announced next Tuesday. And again, similar thing for my YouTube. Head over to YouTube, subscribe, like, and share. Turn notifications on both so you do not miss a single episode. And then again, while you're on YouTube, don't forget to go over to my guy, Daily College Bets. Again, like I said before, we'll be doing a lot of collabs for the NFL. We've got we're working on a few NFL collabs as well for the future bets. But he is the go-to guy for college football. If you're new to college football, head over, take a listen to these. You won't regret it. He is the guy to go to for college. If you're not new to college and you just basically want to win every weekend, go over to Daily again, and he'll set you up straight. So go over, subscribe, tell him your boy Daily, boy Elite Wages sent you, and then obviously head on over to mine, drop me a follow, a subscription, a like, a share, everything help more people win more money by getting my videos and my episodes out there a little bit more. So yeah, that'll be me done for the day. NFC preview done and dusted. AFC will be out in a couple of days. So appreciate you all for listening, and I'll catch you later.